So I'm in the middle of writing this chalk slogan. I just got honked at by a police car across the way there, so we'll see what comes of that. Oh, station 26, so just waved at them. So yeah, they're probably not likely to intervene, but I think they were trying to suggest I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm well within my Charter of Rights and Freedoms, guaranteed civil rights and freedoms, to write chalk slogans on the sidewalk in Montreal or anywhere else in Canada within the context of a peaceful public protest, regardless of what the peaceful public protest is about. But in this case, it's about Unitarian clergy abuse and Unitarian cover-up and denial of clergy abuse. So I'm going to get back to writing the chalk slogan. I don't normally have the I don't normally have the camera running when I'm writing chalk slogans, but I heard this honk. Thought it might be, a supportive honk for the public, because I do get those. So I looked around and it was a police car. I just had a quick glance, so I didn't see the number on it. So anyway, it's from station 26. Don't know where that is, but it's not the station 11 police that normally would deal with any alleged illegal activities on my part here. They've unfortunately had to answer a lot of spurious complaints from Montreal Unitarians who are seeking to shut down my protest against Unitarian clergy abuse and Unitarian cover-up and denial of clergy abuse and various other Unitarian Universalist injustices and abuses and hypocrisy. And quite frankly, I would say that Montreal Unitarians persuading SPVM cops to give me tickets for writing chalk slogans is part of their efforts to cover up clergy abuse. They're trying to make it difficult or expensive for me to protest against clergy abuse when they call in complaints and try to get the SPVM cops to ticket me for writing chalk slogans. And that's just the low end of the scale of what Montreal Unitarians do to misuse police power to suppress my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal. I've actually been arrested on completely and utterly false criminal charges in the past that I had to go to court to defend myself against, and which I did successfully defend myself against when in my cross-examination of the prosecution witnesses, who included Jeremy Searle, a Montreal City Councillor, an NDG City Councillor, who I believe put inappropriate pressure on the police to have me arrested. He wrote letters to the police demanding that they do something and have me arrested and so on. I think as a city councillor, he should not be doing that kind of thing. He was a member of the church, and he was one of the prosecution witnesses, as I said, but I do believe he abused his position somewhat by involving himself in efforts to shut down my protest with a false arrest on criminal charges, which he was very involved in because he was one of the prosecution witnesses. So that's one occasion where I was actually arrested on criminal charges in efforts to silence me. Courtesy of Jeremy Searle and Valmir Bourdon and some other leading members of the Unitarian Church of Montreal in terms of the known prosecution witnesses and so on. But behind the scenes, you can be sure there are other Montreal Unitarians that were involved in that, including a Queen's Counsel lawyer, Kenneth Howard QC, who almost certainly was the person who advised the Unitarian Church of Montreal to try this ploy to shut down my protest, because that's what it was all about. It was all about shutting down my protest in front of the Unitarian Church of Montreal, possibly by having me thrown in jail for 2 years, because that's the maximum penalty. Oh, here's someone who's in total psychological denial here, singing as she goes by. She does this quite a lot. It's basically her way of blocking out reality. So she'll go into the church right now. There she goes. So ba 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 bum, yeah. La 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 la, yeah. Your willful ignorance is hereby officially noted. Oh, I got another police car. Oh, it's 26. Coming by again, same guy. And I'm standing here with my chalk in my hands. So I don't know if he's trying to intimidate me, but if he's got any brains, he ought to realize that it's actually perfectly legal, to the best of my knowledge, to write chalk slogans on the sidewalk in the course of a protest. You know, I think he should maybe check his Charter of Rights and Freedoms and jurisprudence and that sort of thing. So anyhow, Unitarian clergy abuse sucks. We're just going to stick to the same four-word theme. And I use the word sucks for various reasons. One of them being that one form of Unitarian Universalist clergy abuse, as in verbal abuse and perhaps psychological abuse, although I'm not easily psychologically abused. Some Unitarians started something called the Rob and Edgar Sucks blog. So this is a little bit of a payback for Unitarian Universalists who try to defame me online by creating a blog called the Rob and Edgar Sucks blog. So I like to just throw their own shit right back at them, and so they can have the sucks word right back at them. So that's it. Unitarian clergy abuse sucks. So the station 26 guy goes by twice, and both times, well, I can't remember if he honked the second time, but he certainly honked the first time to get my attention. So he obviously wanted me to see him. So I could consider it a friendly warning kind of thing too, but he shouldn't be giving friendly warnings over perfectly legal activity. He should not be. No, then again, maybe I'm misinterpreting things. Here's another possibility. Maybe he saw me writing chalk slogans and he actually honked in approval. That's a possibility, because I don't know what he's thinking. Maybe he saw me and he said, yeah, way to go, Robin. You tell those Unitarians about their clergy abuse problem. And maybe came by a second time just to show support a second time. Who knows? That's a possibility. So I shouldn't necessarily prejudge his motivation for honking the first time and coming by a second time to have another look at my picket signs and chalk slogans. Maybe he wants to be better informed about Unitarian Universalist perversion of justice, which unfortunately includes calling in all kinds of bullshit complaints to the SPVM and having me falsely arrested on bullshit criminal charges and having restraining orders brought against me on the basis of perjurious testimony and so on and so forth. So yeah, I shouldn't prejudge the guy when basically I've been a victim of a certain amount of prejudice. So like I said, I do not know exactly what he was thinking. Obviously, there's reasons to go with the first interpretation based on past experience. But who knows? Maybe the guy's actually, maybe it was a supportive honk. Maybe he was saying, way to go, Rob, and give those Unitarians hell for their, cover up and denial of clergy abuse and so on and so forth. And maybe he just came by a second time to show support. Who knows? That's a possibility, I suppose. So anyhow, we'll just continue protesting here. And if he decides to intervene, or if other cops decide to intervene, well, we'll have a little philosophical discussion. But I'm willing to bet. I'm going to bet $10 right now, which I will donate to some suitable charity or something, that Station 11 cops will not intervene today. That they will leave me alone, because they've been dozens of times, if not hundreds of times. Well, no, hundreds might be, but put it this way, hundreds might be exaggerating a bit, but I'd say it's very possible that if you added up all the times that SPVM police officers have intervened in my protest over the years, that it could add up to 100 total, or close to it. I don't think it's a whole lot more than 100, but it could be right up there, close to 100, and it's certainly dozens. It's like many, many interventions. They're spread over time, but and they've certainly diminished. I have to say that I'm very happy that the police interventions in my protest, and often in ways that seek to shut it down, sometimes with abusive misuse of the criminal justice system and so on, they've diminished considerably. In fact, I raised the issue. I raised the issue at a recent meeting of the candidates in NDG. There was a meeting of candidates for mayor of Côte-des-Neiges, Notre-Dame-de-Grâce borough in Montreal. And amongst the candidates was Sue Montgomery, a Montreal Unitarian, who has involved herself in efforts to shut down my protest, which I consider to be misuse and abuse of the criminal justice system to suppress very legitimate freedom of speech. And so what I did is, there was a possibility of asking questions. So I asked a very general question. I didn't even say anything about Sue Montgomery's involvement in misuse of the criminal justice system to conceal such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers. I just asked a very general question. I brought up the fact that the SPVM police have repeatedly interfered in my protest outside the Unitarian Church of Montreal in a way that suppresses my ability to engage in peaceful public protest. And in some case, if they're not successful in suppressing it, well, they certainly try, but they have been successful in some occasions, and I have received tickets that I never should have been given, and so on. I've been arrested, but I never should have been arrested, and so on. So all I did was I just gave a brief overview of my experiences here at the Unitarian Church of Montreal with SPVM officers from Station 11, to say nothing of Station 12, and just asked the candidates for mayor, what they can do, what they will do to ensure that the police officers at Station 11 fully respect the rights and freedoms that are enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and do not falsely arrest people to suppress their free speech, do not hand out tickets they should not be handing out to suppress free speech, and so on. So Russell Copeman, the incumbent mayor of Côte-des-Neiges NDG, gave a reasonable answer, but I think he could have done better. But he did make the point, that as mayor, that his hands are somewhat tied. He has to be very careful, about what he says and does about police activities and so on. But the other candidate, trying to remember his name. I mean, it's on a board here somewhere. But the Coalition Montreal candidate, I'm not going to mispronounce his name, so I'll just not say it at all. He came back with what I consider to be a somewhat conservative answer. And then Sue Montgomery just sat there hemming and hawing and looking very uncomfortable for quite a long time. And then instead of answering the question, she accused me of harassing her. So this is basically her way out of answering a perfectly legitimate general question about misuse of police power to suppress constitutionally guaranteed civil rights and freedoms in NDG, because this is in NDG. And I am also currently a resident of NDG, so I had very good reason to ask this question. But yes, the Unitarian Church of Montreal is in the eastern extremity of Notre-Dame-de-Grâce borough in Montreal, so a very legitimate question for me to ask the candidates about misuse of police power in NDG. And I didn't limit it just to my protest. I also spoke in more general terms, about police suppression of freedom of speech and so on. And I just brought up my experiences as concrete examples of what I've personally experienced. So anyways, Sue Montgomery, I'm trying to remember I'm trying to remember her exact words. Off the top of my head, I can't, but she basically accused me of many years of harassment kind of thing. Well, excuse me, but if very legitimately accusing Sue Montgomery of complicity in Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of such despicable crimes as pedophilia and rape committed by certain Unitarian Universalist ministers, to say nothing of certain Unitarian Universalist Sunday school teachers, is harassment. Well, fine, but I don't believe it is. And I also like to point out, I actually gave Sue Montgomery an opportunity to have a clean slate back in 2014. In 2014, it looks like that was a supportive honk. Guy was looking right at me. Anyhow, in December of 2014, Sue Montgomery arranged to have the media lawyer in Montreal, Mark Banty, who generally works for institutions like the Gazette and newspapers and so on, in terms of media issues. And at the time, I should point out that in case it's not obvious to those people who don't know about Sue Montgomery, she was at the time the justice reporter for the Montreal Gazette. So she basically arranged to have Mark Banty have me served with a cease and desist demand letter that essentially falsely accused me of making false accusations about Sue's involvement in or complicity in Unitarian Universalist cover-up and denial of clergy abuse. Well, unfortunately for Mark Banty and also for Sue Montgomery, everything I'm saying about Sue Montgomery is, solidly supported by evidence. She basically is not in a position to say that I'm lying or anything. I'm very, very careful to be very truthful and quite accurate in what I'm saying about Sue Montgomery, or anyone else for that matter, as I am right now. And so I responded to that letter on December 6th. I got it